You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa, the Pan-African Nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
Peace on Cobia. E.M. Hotep. I come in peace. Today we are going to announce 2 new books for young adults, and submissions are welcome. Marcus Garvey had said a reading man or woman is a ready man or woman, but a writing man or woman is exact. The reality is this: if you are not reading, you are not ready. And there exist exceptions. Certainly there were illiterate people who did extraordinarily. But this you must review. These illiterate people might have been in proximity or under the tutelage of literate people. It's no coincidence, for instance, that a lot of the credit for the sentiments of the Haitian Revolution goes back to Bookman, an African whose name is a portmanteau for book and man. The illiterate African, no less illiterate Maroon. And what's important about this is that Bookman is considered one of the impetus. And not just that, spirituality is a literate, is a form of literacy. It is not only a form of literacy being able to read reality, but it comes from a tradition of literacy, even if it's passed on orally. You know, oral traditions constitute reading, if you will, except that that sort of reading isn't as perfected these days for us, for you or me. You know, we can associate with people, or like, for instance, this podcast, if you are able to pick up on it, digest it, it can technically constitute reading, if you will. But there is much more you can grasp or get moving at your own pace in your own literature, in your own books. There's a deepness to education that is tailored to you. There's a depth to it. You know, the instructor can move at your pace, set the course for you. And unfortunately, unless you're listening to this podcast more than once, or repeatedly, and slowly and diligently, you know, while you can definitely learn a lot, it's still well advised that you get yourself a book. Get yourself either the Pro-Black Compendium, Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa, the Carlos A. Cook's Reader. You know, get yourself something to study, and do that. Study and put it to action, put it to work. That's what it is. But like Marcus Garvey said, a reading man or woman is a ready man or woman, but a writing man or woman is exact. And bear in mind that I added woman to that quote because it's not really strictly for men, which might not necessarily be a concern for some people, but it might be a concern for other people. So I added that. So in case you wanted to search it for yourself, but the gist of it is, we need to get ready, and that comes through reading. But to be exact, comes from writing, and this is why I'm welcoming submissions for these 2 new books, right? Because if you want to be exact, you need to put your thoughts down. You need to tell your story. You need to write. At one point, I was in a organization in New York, and it a lot of times there was a speaker that was invited, and what happened was the chairperson for the organization said that if anybody showed up to the organization without a clipboard and paper and pen, that either they had to purchase a clipboard or they'd be turned away. And there were elderly people walking into this meeting, traveling at night for every week, and they've been there sometimes for 20 something years, and notwithstanding that, they were turned back at the door or forced to buy a clipboard, or somebody else will buy a clipboard for them, or even the young people. But the whole idea is that what the chairman said, why he explained it, he said, just like in mathematics, if you're trying to solve a problem, particularly a complex problem, you got to pull out the paper and pen. Someone like me can do multiplication easily, right? You tell me, hey, what's 48 times 2, right? And I would, quickly, almost like you told me 96, I would tell you 96, right? But if you said, hey, what is 48 times 52, right? I might not do it as quickly or as easily, but if I wanted to do it, I could, multiply it by hand. Now, actually, something like 48 times 52 wouldn't necessarily be a hard problem to do if you know how to do mathematics in your head, because you could do 48 times 50 plus 48 times 2, and 48 times 50 would be easy, because you would just like when you multiply something by 5 or 50, it's kind of like multiplying it by half times 100, right? So 48 times a half is 24. 24 times 100 is 200, 2400, right? And then you would add the 96 after that, and you'd get 2496. But so as to say that maybe I might not necessarily need a pen for that, a pen and paper for that, and let's just hope I said that one right. But what I'm saying though is that there is certain problems, like if you, and I don't need to keep going in the example, you get what I'm saying, but there are certain examples of not just multiplication, but let's say calculus or vector analysis or matrices or let's say hydrodynamics, that would require a pen and paper, not just doing it in the head, so, and that's the thing too, if you're really trying to solve problems, you gotta write it down. You should be familiar with a paper and pen. A lot of good things come from preparing, from writing, from dialoguing, but mainly write out your ideas, and this brings us to the topic at hand. I put out a poll, and I said, hey, I want to write an anthology, right? What do you want it to be? Do you want it to be fiction, non-fiction? Do you want it to be, debates, critiques, blueprints? Do you want it to be, like, what kind of fiction would it be? Would it be erotica, which probably nobody elected for, apparently? only writing erotica doesn't really, resonate with you people. But would it be erotica? Would it be science fiction, speculative fiction? Would it be fantasy? Would it be historical fiction? Or if it were nonfiction, would it be let's say just history? Would it be critiques and debates? Would it be speeches, so on and so forth? And then what age group do you find it to be, do you find most enticing? What age group most needs new literature? Is it 0 to 8? 0 to 7? Is it 8 to 15? Is it 16 to 23? Is it 23 to 29? Is it 30 plus? What age group really needs a reader? And there were a lot of votes. Barely anybody voted for 23 and up. Most people voted for under 23. Some people were I heard at least one person reason why 8 to 15, because realistically speaking, white people don't wait. Gangbangers don't wait for you to be 16 in order to, bring you into their mentality. And because nobody else is waiting, it doesn't really make sense why we would wait, But all the same, the most was 16 to 23. And yet, I have to ask you, 8 to 15, it still remains, an important age grade, because the reality is that, let's say if we're looking at our own people today, what is driving the imagination of 8 to 15 year olds? You understand? Like, what is driving their imagination right now? And if you were my age, right? So let's say that I'm around 30. I'm under 30, but let's say I'm around 30, right? If you're my age, right, chances are that when you were between 8 and 15, your imagination was being driven by Japanese cartoons, anime, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Gundam Wing. You were probably collecting Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It was stupid things, like very stupid things we were doing, where we learned nothing, but that was driving our imagination, to the point where we might have ran funny, quote unquote, like a ninja, or we might have gestured like we were powering up, or throwing a ball of energy out of our hands, or even say we might have wondered if aliens would be humanoids, 2 legs, 2 feet, kind of like people who would watch Star Wars or some stupid crap like that, right? Or maybe we thought that robots would be fighting in wars one day, like literal humanoid robots, and the thing is that this was driving our imagination, during our early years, formative years. And that's some of us, some of us who might have been, privileged to even have, cable or well, not necessarily privileged, but you understand what I'm saying. Just privileged enough to dilly-dally uselessly, over nothing, and the thing is that in those circumstances, we were watching Japanese cartoons or whatever crap, I guess they call them animes or whatever, right? We knew nothing, right? And less about ourselves, and that's a shame. That's a shame, And then you think about the 8 to 15 year old today, what does he have, or what does she have? Gangs, or musicians, encouraging prostitution, encouraging gangs, encouraging self-hatred, encouraging embarrassment. That's what 8 to 15 year olds have today. and it's a real, it's a tragedy, if you will. You know, at least when I was younger, you know, I remember when I visited, like, I didn't really watch, like, I used to watch, let's say, Tom and Jerry or some crap like that, right? Some stupid American cartoons or whatever, right? And I went to one of my cousin's houses, and they had video games. You know, they were playing Street Fighter, like one of the early Street Fighters, and they had BET and MTV, and they were watching, you know, music television, and like someone like Michael Jackson would have a new music video on television, you know, and you know, you'd watch, you know, a Michael Jackson music video on television, and that was, you know, it wasn't necessarily bad in a sense, and I don't mean it wasn't necessarily, you know, Michael Jackson's bad song, right? There's no pun intended over there, right? But what I'm saying is, you know, it wasn't necessarily the worst thing in the world to watch a music video, right? But today, you know, I see I can't remember the age of these kids, but they're doing some stupid dances. They're listening to some stupid music. You know, Bruno Mars is there, you know, whatever. Cardi B is someone that like even grown women are looking at her Instagram feed or whatever, or her Twitter feed, and just hearing her talk stupid stuff, and they're enjoying listening to her, you know. But and then you could just imagine how the kids are. I mean, I think because I was you know, in proximity to somebody listening to Cardi B one day, and Cardi B has a video where she's saying, you know, my breasts are getting so big. My breasts are so big, you know, because apparently I guess she's pregnant. She said, look, my breasts are so big. Oh man, I can shake them. And that's the gap. Like, that's just the whole video. And this person's playing it on repeat. You know, they're playing it on repeat. And it's you understand what I'm saying? There's nothing there. You don't learn about yourself, and yet it's driving your imagination. You understand? Because when you're 8 to 15 and so on and so forth, you're imaginative. You're trying to understand the world. You're trying to grasp the universe, and yet what you have to consume is, you know, Cardi B talking about her breasts. You know, and Cardi B is not even an African woman. Yet you're being, you know, everyone around you is telling you to identify with her. You know, everyone is telling you, hey, nobody but black people are calling you, you know, a nigga, if you will. You know, nobody but black people are using the N-word, yet Cardi B is using the N-word. So the assumption would be, hey, maybe she's black, because there's no outrage that this non-black woman is using the N-word at black people. There's no outrage. And you know, because of that, you know, you are saying, hey, look, you know, the 8 to 15-year-olds are like, hey, you know what? This is a black woman. This is what it means to be a black woman. And bear in mind, she's not even black. You know, it's that remarkable. And it's not just young people who are confused about this. Older people are saying, look, Cardi B did X, Y, and Z. Man, we black women, we always, and it's like, what are you talking about? She's not even, you know, it's just, you know, and this is the thing though. It's like someday, at some point, you know, you're going to see this more often, where someone who's clearly not black is being portrayed as somebody black, because this is something old, and it's nothing new there. So for instance, when I was younger, you know, again, we go back to this 8 to 15, you know, besides from the stupid anime that was on, you know, TV, and, you know, the money I wasted on Yu-Gi-Oh cards, you know, the public fool system was giving me safe examples of people for consumption, and one of those was the mixed race Frederick Douglass, you know. And if you know about me, right, like growing up, you know, I really did, you know, emulate this Frederick Douglass. You know, sometimes I would go places, you know, and even, you know, pretend, you know, like, you know, for a code name. Like if I tell my friend, you know, we go out, you know, I had a code name, you know, it would be something, you know, to the effect of, you know, Frederick Douglass, you know. I mean, I don't have to tell you the code, but you understand, it wasn't, you know, I was serious about, you know, this guy was, you know, sort of a role model, and yet there he is, mixed race, you know, and he's not necessarily hostile, or, you know, he's not necessarily, or let's put it in his own words, you know, Martin Delany and Frederick Douglass were like the Dr. King and Malcolm X of their time, you know, the two superstars, right? But one of them outshines the other, right? No, one of them outshines the other in posterity, but during their lifetime, versus during the lifetime of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, you probably knew about both of them, right? Just the same, during the lifetime of Frederick Douglass, you probably knew about Martin Delany, right? But after the lifetime of Frederick Douglass, just like after the lifetime of Martin Luther King Jr., you don't know about Malcolm X, and you don't know about Martin Delany, you know. And I'm not saying Malcolm X is any Martin Delany. I'm not saying Malcolm X is on par with, you know, or was the best example of his time, right? And I would say Martin Delany is definitely up there, you know, definitely up there. But what Frederick Douglass said about Martin Delany was, you know, that every morning Frederick Douglass wakes up and says, "Thank God I am a man," right? And, you know, he uses the term God. I wouldn't. It's not a term for us African people. But, you know, this is the quote. He says, Frederick Douglass says, every morning he wakes up and he says, "Thank God I'm a man." But Martin Delany wakes up every morning and says, "Thank God I'm a black man." You know, there's a difference between a man and a black man. And Martin Delany was there. But Martin Delany, they won't tell you about Martin Delany. They will tell you about Frederick Douglass. You know, mixed race, doesn't, you know, not really hostile to whites, very assimilationist, if you will, you know, integrationist, you know, so on and so forth. Not like Martin Delany. Martin Delany is a black man. He advocates for black solutions, black nationalism, black independence. You know, he writes a story, great book, definitely read it, Blake or the Huts of America. And it's you know, he writes about, he's handling questions, and that's actually something that you gotta remember. He's handling questions. He's bringing up debates in his book, but he's giving a story to it so that you're not necessarily, you know, bored or feeling out of context, you know. And that's really something that you have to remember later on in this podcast, because again, I'm going to be asking for submissions for these anthologies that I'm looking for, and I want you to submit, you know, to make a submission, you know. But anyway, when I learned about Frederick Douglass, like I said, you know, I didn't hear about Martin Delany, so I had to look at Frederick Douglass, right? Because again, the quote goes, you know, men, you know, people need idols. No, people need images, and lacking them, they invent idols, right? So Frederick Douglass, you know, you read his story, and he says what helped him read, what helped him gain literacy, was the Columbian Orator, a book named the Columbian Orator. And you know, like any old fool, I was, you know, I knew about Lincoln, and I heard that Lincoln also, you know, read it. But of course, I wasn't really concerned about that. What I was concerned about was, you know, Frederick Douglass. You know, he used this book, so I'm going to get the same book, right? And of course, I try to wade through it. It's incredibly white, you know, and it's basically a book for white worship. You know, the tagline for this book is, hold on a second. The tagline the tagline for this book is the book that helped build the American character, right? And again, it's just a book for white worship. You know, they have some, but it's not necessarily like it's bad for white worship, but it's not bad in and of itself. You know, it talks about, you know, educational philosophy, pedagogy. It shows debates, shows logical arguments, shows speeches, shows you know, liberation talk, shows, you know, so all this kind of stuff that would be good for a white person. You know, for a white person, particularly maybe particularly the white liberal, but all of that and yada yada. But it's not for you, but you could have an orator book for you. You know, and if you're you know, if you're thinking right now, you can probably tell where I'm going with this. You know, you can probably tell what one of the two books would be. But going back to what I'm saying, in this book, The Columbian Orator, you know, they talk about Cicero, George Washington, Moses, Cromwell. You get what I'm saying? Now, you as an African, you know, if you're looking for a orator, right, the best of his time and the most intelligent is Marcus Garvey. So you don't need Cicero for an orator. When you have Marcus Garvey, you understand? You don't need George Washington as an administrator when you have Taharka. You know, you don't need Moses as a spiritual guide when you have Oduduwa, right? And you don't need Cromwell as a liberator of people when you have Toussaint or even Dessalines. You understand what I'm saying to you? This is we have an opportunity before us, right? We have an opportunity before us to create a book that can be the reader, right? The reader for African people who want to get into the field of speaking up and doing and leading. We can create that book to help build the African character, right? For the young Africans, 8 to 15, 16 to 23, for the young African looking to change the world. We can write that book. You understand? I can edit that book. And we're gonna talk. You know, we're gonna talk. I want you to contact me. Let me know what you're thinking. Right? Let me know what you want to get done. And we're there. But again, you know, going back into where we are as the people right now, you know, there was this one brother, you know, he's on my social media, cool, good brother, you know, and he started posting some nerd stuff, you know, and I don't know if you know, look, I watched the Naruto and all that crap before, you know, I played video games, I played, let's say Final Fantasy or Xenogears or whatever, you know, some stupid crap, right? I did all that, right? But even doing that, you know, or watching Star Wars and all that crap, I still hate nerds, right? I just hate them, you know, like, because it's just they're just so deep in nothing. They're you know, for me it's like you have no freaking self-pride. You know, you're just watching the Japanese practice nationalism. The Japanese have a product and they're saying, look, we're going to push out this product, we're going to push out this message, and then you help them. Right? And it's pathetic. It's pathetic. You know, so the brother was putting up, you know, black cosplayers, right? And I don't want to see black cosplayers, you know, but you listen to them and they're telling themselves that they are not limited by their skin colors. You know, they want to dress up as white people or Japanese people, you know, they want to dress up as Japanese people or white people, and they're telling themselves that they are not limited by their skin colors. And to me, it's like, how stupid do you have to be to say something like that? Like, why? How in the world is your skin, your beautiful black skin, a limitation? And this is what they're doing. These are, you know, some of these cosplayers are beautiful women dressing up in skimpy outfits for white boys. dressing up in skimpy outfits for white boys, yet they feel somehow feel, unnerved, unsettled, unwanted. Nice black bodies dressing up for white boys, and yet that's their whole, it's like, oh my gosh, like if I, and then the male nerd is just, just worst, just worst. The self-pride is not there, the self-pride is not there. Dressing up, it's just not, it's just to feel limited by your skin color. Like, why are you even saying that? White people are saying you can't be Spider-Man because you're not. Why would you want to be Spider-Man? You understand? He's not. If he's not black, then you pick something. Stop looking for. Create your own. Create your own. You have Zuberi. You understand? You have Zuberi. And not just Zuberi. If I were to walk over to my bookshelf, I could show you, I could read a couple of, black fiction books. Black fantasy. I have black fantasy books. I have, I know black sci-fi books. You can, and you don't have to dress up for no white boys. Where does that even come off? Like, where does that even make sense? Where does that make sense? But it goes back to, matter of fact, Bitter Medicine podcast, asked on Twitter, he said, how is it that Whitey got the religion in Africa? And it's, I made, one observation, which was, Whitey understood that each generation replaces the older generation, and the reality is that as long as we are not preparing the next generation, someone else will. As long as we are not preparing the next generation, someone else will. Whitey kidnapped. Once upon a time, Whitey kidnapped. He stole children from African villages. Sometimes he put them inside of these schools, the educational programs where they, were taught to denounce their old African ways. But, and on top of that, he molested them. On top of that, because he can't control himself. And he's a horrible, aspect of this world, right? But at the same time, notwithstanding that, he took these children and perverted their minds, and yet now we willingly hand our children over to white people, and what you get is this black cosplayer, and like I said, I was into that stupid anime crap too. Most people my age were when they were much younger, and honestly, not everybody grows out of it. Not everybody grows out of it, but also very few. I mean, I would hope that most of us don't go ham like we did when we were children. You know what I mean? Like, sure, you can put on a, because you were young, you can look up, what Naruto's up to, what his grandchildren or whatever. I don't know, but you can look that up. Sure. It's an innocent inquiry, if you will. It's pathetic, yes, but it's what you expect when you're being prepared by another people. It's what you expect when the children are stolen, when the parents are not giving the guidance or providing the cultural imagination that they should have been. Because someone else was. And these Japanese people were making it for their own Japanese children, and somehow, they got that Japanese nonsense into the homes of black people, and the black parents didn't necessarily take it away from us. Didn't necessarily say, hey, this might be some Japanese propaganda, might be some stupid, whatever, look here, we're going to get together and we're going to make a black example, and it's gonna, we're going to have, kind of like the Boondocks, if you will. We're going to have Dr. King come back and see where his people are, and then lecture them about how he's going to Canada or something, something along those lines. No, our parents didn't do that. They said, you're watching, Dragon Ball Z, well, make sure you catch Gundam Wing later, and then some people, then some of the women just grew up and started dress, some of them, some of the dudes and the women just got just terrible, just, oh, I'm a nerd. Like, no, you're a part of the problem. You're a part of the problem. And it goes back to, page 106 of the Pro-Black Compendium, where I write, now white writes what black reads. Behold, skin now becomes a mask, So I'll say it again. Now white writes what black reads. Behold, skin now becomes a mask, The reality is this. Most people that you know in your life that you are black people, most people that you know in your life that are black people are white people in blackface. Okay? Most people that you know in your life that are black people are white people in blackface. Their skin is a mask for their minds, which have been completely perverted into whiteness. Okay? Either you get them a black book or you regard them as whites. Alright? That's really what it comes down to. The people that you see are black people. The people that you think are black people are white people in blackface. Alright? Their skin is a mask for their minds that were perverted into whiteness. Either black reads what black writes, or and lives black, or black reads what white writes and live white. Digest that, okay? We're taking a break, and we're actually going to talk about a book club by Bitter Medicine Podcast.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Greetings, family. This is Koku, host of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. In case you didn't know, we have an online book club called the Bitter Medicine Book Club. Every month, we will select a book to inspire the Bitter Medicine Podcast listening audience to read along together. At the end of the month, we will have a call-in show and book discussion. This is a great, dynamic way for readers to not only enjoy a book, but also have others to bounce ideas off of. They say if you want to keep anything away from black people, put it in a book. Don't allow this to be true. Head over to bittermedicineblogs.com and subscribe to our newsletter for important updates. Do that today. Join our reading collective today and empower yourselves, your family, and your community. Peace and blessings. You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
So, as you probably guessed, my intention is to write a book based around the Pro-Black Compendium, right? But before then, right, I want you to help me publish 2 other books. Okay? I want you to help me publish 2 other books, right? And these names are pending, right? Because I was going to say the Pan-African Orator and the Pan-African Reader, right? But then I remembered, look, we're going to talk about Oncobia from now on, right? The Oncobia, that's our tribe, okay? If you want to be down with, you know, Onitaset, you're Oncobia, okay? So I was thinking, look, the Oncobian Orator and the Oncobian Reader. The only problem is the word Oncobian might not necessarily translate right, you know. So I'm gonna ask one of my friends who knows Chui if, you know, how I can necessarily say the Oncobian, you know, or even maybe I might have to say the Orator Oncobia, you know, or the Reader Oncobia, or the Oncobia, or the Oncobiu Orator, you know, whatever it might be. The reality is that these are the 2 books that we need to get out, right? And you can help me with that, right? Because I'm looking to make this Orator book, the Oncobian Orator, be similar to the Colombian Orator, but not white and very black. Okay? Very, very black, right? And it should represent the best of us. You know, from Garvey, Cooks, Wilson, Ani, and so on, right? But even go back into the ancient world, you know, and also come back to the present, you know, and to say you have your Oni, your Imhoteps, your Adirafos, your Asimendices, you know, and that's if I'm able to, you know, because again, there might be some copyright issues there, you know, but also if you're willing, you know, like we can get you into this book as well. You know, I want us to have these books on hand, because you have to realize too that our people have done this already. You know, we've done this already. You know, there's these books called The Sparkling Gem. There's a book called The Sparkling Gems of Race Knowledge. You know, there's another book called, you know, like a reader, like Masters of Negro Eloquence. You know, the Masters of Negro Eloquence, and it outlines, you know, several great speeches by different, you know, black people in the past. You know, the Sparkling Gems of Race Wisdom, you know, has all sorts of information for race knowledge. You know, it actually has the list of different wealth in the black community. You know, then there's of course the colored reader, you know, the reader for colored children or something like that, right? And that's another book. And all 3 of these books that I just mentioned are on Gutenberg, which is a shame. You know, it's a shame because they should be on a black website. You know, the preservation of our past should be the duty of our people. But there you have it on Gutenberg or something, you know. But the whole idea is that we can, you know, we've done things like this before, but the whole idea is that we're gonna make it for the Oncobia, you know, for the Pan-African Nationalists, you know. So it's not gonna be, you know, well, you know, Du Bois did a good speech, so we're gonna put Du Bois. No, we're not gonna put Du Bois in. You get what I'm saying? And I'm saying that to say, like preliminarily, you know, like if he says something that might be instrumental for black people, which is something I doubt, you know, because I read his work. It's not, you know, it's not that great, right? But if he says something that might be instrumental, sure, you know, include it. If it's a good example that, you know, our people can learn from, sure, include it, you know. But again, we're gonna look for the best, you know, and I want you, and you know, you could submit something too. You know, if you think that there's something that you need to tell, you need somebody to read, something broad, something beautiful, something wonderful, you know, let me know. I'm open to being an editor in this, you know, an editor, and not the writer, you know. I'm welcome to being the editor, right? And trust me, and the thing is this though, that for original submissions, I'm probably going to edit pretty tough, you know. So if you write something and the logic is not fully sound, I might tell you, hey, look, elaborate on that, explain that. So this is going to be a good opportunity for you to really get your problem solving done. You know, your problem solving on. You know, it's going to be a good opportunity, so don't pass up on it. You know, because, you know, these 2 books, you know, when I get these out, you know, like I said, you know, you want your library to have 3 people. Like you want your book, you want a bookshelf for 3 people. I'm looking to fill up my spaces. Okay, so I have 3 more books planned. You know, 2 of them I just revealed. You know, the Oncobian Orator, the Oncobian Reader, and these are going to be for young adults. All right, young adults. So, like I said, though, it's like, and if you think, hey, look, I don't know what I could write, I don't know if I could say it well, but I know somebody else who said something pretty well, you know, and you have the YouTube link, right? I'll be happy to transcribe it. You know, if you don't want to transcribe it, I'd be happy to transcribe it. So it's like, if you think I should put in, for instance, you know, a good Wilson speech, you know, I can transcribe it. You know, I can, Wilson said something pretty witty, and it's a good length, and kids can learn from it. You know, young adults can learn from it. An 8-year-old or a 15-year-old or a 23-year-old, whatever, can learn from an Amos Wilson speech, but there's no text for it. I'd be happy to write it out. You know, of course, I'm not going to write out the whole speech. You just tell me what. I'm not going to write out the whole speech. You know, you just tell me where, you know, what, you know, I could listen to, and I could see, is this really what I need to, you know, is this really what kids need to recite? And if it is, you know, consider it done. Consider it in the book, you know? Because Osimhendices wrote on social media, he said he liked Frederick Douglass too, you know? But partly because he had no idea about Marcus Garvey or Bruce Grid or Hubert Harrison or Dr. Ben. You get what I'm saying? And the thing is this, that my thing is this: we should not have another generation of men or women not knowing men and women before them. And when I say men and women, I mean like Delaney, a black man and a black woman. If we don't know those, we're going to mature too late. You get what I'm saying? We're going to mature too late. Because from 8 years old, you should already know your great people. You get what I'm saying? Most of us don't know until we're 20s. Until we're 20. Most of us don't know. You understand? I was sitting down in graduate school. Like, I was literally sitting down in graduate school before I knew that ancient Kemet was a black society. You know, I went through years of, I already graduated from college, from Wazungu College or whatever, in astrophysics, right? Without even knowing the contributions that Africans did on astrophysics. You know, one of my professors was, this cracker woman was, authoring a book on cosmology, and she was, she put all the emphasis on ancient Greece and their use of Egyptian records to show that the let's say the galaxy is spinning, so as to say that the ancient Kemetic people, or the ancient Kemet right, had the star charts, and the Greeks just copied them, just copied them, just stole them, and then the Greeks got credit for saying, hey, there's a rotation. But of course, the ancient Kemet already knew about the rotation, okay? And we see this in their own scientific writings, right? We see this in their calendar, right? We see this all over, but the Greeks got the credit even in this this white woman's, cosmology textbook, and my stupid ass, well, I shouldn't say that, but I'm sitting down and I'm just looking at this, I'm hearing her snicker about how the Egyptians were, savages, or they just didn't know. They only knew about astrology, not necessarily astronomy like these, white Greeks, so, I'm hearing her snicker about this in class, and I'm just sitting there, kind of feeling, to me, it's like I didn't even necessarily process. You know, I mean, it's tough to say what I knew at the time. You know, I might have known that they were African, or they were dark African, they were black Africans. I might have thought they were a mixture. I don't know what it was, but I'm an old person. I should have known everything there was to know about my people, and yet I knew nothing. You know, and I sat down while this woman was pretty much, you know, mocking my lineage, you know, in front of my face, and yet at the same time, you know, I'm in this school and I'm thinking, you know, well, this is, you know, maybe this professor is going to write me a good recommendation for graduate school, you know, or all that kind of crap, you know. It's like my concerns were elsewhere, you know. Too old. I was too old, you know. And so in this book, you know, I want to give you guys the greats, but I also want to give you some scientific thinking, you know. Earlier today, you know, our brother on social media was talking about how we got to be suspicious of talks of early humanity, you know, and you know, particularly like early whites and like what really happened in our story, you know. And yet what pressed me was that it reflects on our thinking, you know, because we tend to think that white people are so much, you know, but yet when you look at the historical record, right, 200,000 years of human history went by without any whites. You understand? 200,000 years, and it's like we can't even fathom how long 200,000 years is, you know. In, you know, America, for instance, is at best, I mean, literally, like speaking genuinely, it's not like, let's say 400 years. Let's say it's not really 400 years, but let's just say it's 400 years long. 400 years old, right? And that's 400 years. You know, 200,000 is, let's say, 5,000 times the length, right? Maybe more. You know, but the whole thing is, yeah, 500 times, right? So the whole thing is that 500 times the length of American history, if you will, you know, or white dominance, right? 500 times that length was how, like, black, just exclusive black humanity, exclusively black humanity. You understand? White people on the longest estimate are 8,000 years old. You know, like white skin itself is 8,000 years old. You know, by a long estimate. You know, and 200,000 years for humanity is a short estimate. You know, and it's like you can't fathom this. You can't fathom this. There was a whole world before white people, and a long world. There were civilizations up and down. You know, and the world as we know, we can't even process it. We can't even fathom it. It was just a whole different realm. There's governments, societies, armies, you know, peacekeepers, inventions, you know, all of that just gone, unimaginable. And the thing is that we couldn't even uncover it if we wanted to, because we're not even trying to uncover it. You know, the archaeologists are white, you know, for a reason, for a good reason. You know, the archaeologists are white. The everything is whitewashed, you know, but and to the point where today, you know, white people centralize themselves. You know, they make you believe that everything started with them, yet nothing started with them. Nothing. And that's the kind of imagination that we're lacking You know, like I said, you know, I was sitting down while this white woman was lying to me, you know, telling me, hey, look, you know, these ancient Kemet, you know, the people of ancient Kemet, you know, or she said ancient Egypt, but, you know, the people of ancient Kemet, they all they knew about was astrology, you know, and astrology is ridiculous, you know, but the Greeks, you know, they were scientific, they were mathematical, they were, you know, they put, you know, real thought into it. That's the white way. You know, she didn't say the white way, but, you know, that's pretty much what she meant. You know, she had pictures in the book, you know, and that was the way of thinking. It was, hey, these white people started this. White people, you know, did something. And that's how 20-year-old black people are thinking. You know, and that's if they're lucky. You know, there are 40-year-old black people who think worse than that. You know, 50-year-old, 60-year-old, 80-year-old. Imagine 80 years of ignorance. You know? And the thing is this, like I said, the older generation dies and gets replaced. You know? The older generation dies and gets replaced. And we will be replaced too. And the only question, of course, again, is what will we be replaced by? You know? So again, I can give you scientific thinking. I can give you mathematical thinking, you know, historical thinking, you know, and tell me what else you want. You know, we can have cooking talk. We could talk about, you know, we could put part of it is, you know, sexual health. You know, why not? I already have an article on that. You know, anything you want, the peculiar, anything. You know, Marcus Garvey spoke on how to have friends. You know, or Amos Wilson spoke on writing science fiction. You know. Like these speeches, you know, that are inspirational, magnetic, magical, you know, these are the things that you want our young to read, right? So send them to me. You know, if you're a connoisseur of black speeches and speechcraft, and you know these are good black people that you want our young people to look further into, who are giving sound advice, or giving clear, well thought out, great examples of speaking, then send it to me, you know, because that's what we need, and make it for the young adults. But I'm gonna cut to another break, and this one's gonna be about the Carlos A. Cook's reader, you know, because that's an example of something that's inspirational, magnetic, magical, right? But it's not just for young adults, you know. It's for you, you know, you too, you know. And when I say you too, I mean that, and I'm gonna and bear in mind, I'm going to include some of Carlos A. Cook's speeches into this Oncobian orator. But what I'm saying is that you want to get this this Carlos A. Cook's reader too. Particularly now that the Oncobian orator is not out yet. You know, it's not even dreamed of, but you want to get this to see exactly what I mean. You know, this is what we need to do.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace Seeker. This is Oni from the Pro-Black Perspective, and we need power. Power will not be handed to us. We need to build power. But in order to build power, we need a power blueprint. You need to study the best blueprints available. You have Garveys. You have Wilsons. You have Williams. You have mine. Now, you'll have Cooks. Carlos A. Cooks was Garvey's best student. The greatest mind in the world from 1940 to 1966. Yes, the greatest. Yet Whitey doesn't want you to read his blueprint. Cook's blueprint isn't religious. Cook's isn't for integration. Cook's isn't for communism. Cook's isn't even for anti-blacks. Cook's blueprint is for Africa. And Cook's blueprint is the unknown blueprint that was the basis of black power as we know it today. When you say buy black, you're talking about Cook's. When you say black is beautiful, you're talking about Cook's. When you say Malcolm got something right, you're talking about Cook's. But Cook's blueprint was lost, and Whitey is hiding that blueprint behind $1,000 paywall. He's hiding solutions from you, telling you you need to take out a small loan to get the information that can liberate you. Whitey does not want you to have solutions to your problems, but you need solutions. You need power. I will give you the Carlos A. Cook's Reader, valued over $1,000 at a 98% discount, $15. Send $15 to cash.me/$ABS-ONI with the subject Carlos and your email address, and I'll send you the ebook. We need power. You need blueprints. Start building today.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
So last but good as well is the Oncobian Reader, right? And so the Oncobian Reader should be short stories, plays, poems, that kind of stuff to just a young person could just sit down and just read and enjoy, you know, just read and enjoy and enjoy their imagination, you know, their imagination and where it takes them. Tell them a story, you know, because unlike the orator where we can easily find, you know, great speeches, you know, we can get Amos Wilson, clip his work and write it down, and then, you know, our kids could read it and say, wow, you know, I want to speak like this dude, you know. Or we can get Garvey, and we can get Cooks, and we can get Marimba Ani, and we can get so on and so forth, right? We don't have short stories that we can go to, you know, particularly not Pan-African nationalist short stories. So for this one, I definitely want you to help out. All right? I definitely want you to help out. Okay? There was a sister blogger who made a call for, you know, short stories, plays, poems, stories, you know, whatever, right? And so I submitted one, you know? And what's important is that I wrote the story. It was about a woman who, you know, after defending her man from the police, you know, and seeing him fall short of defending her even vocally, you know, she starts a movement of withholding sex. You know, I gotta admit, it's Lisa Strada style, right? And that's a Wazungu crap, right? And I can elaborate on that later. But, you know, she starts a movement of withholding sex to tell him and other black men that they must earn sex by solving the police brutality problem. You get what I'm saying? So it's a story with a lesson and an instruction, and that's what a short story is. Okay? So, and the thing is this: if you want to read the short story I wrote, you know, I submitted, you know, just hit me up. Okay? Hit me up. You know my social media. You know, Onitaset. You know, at Onitaset, ONITASET. You know my email. You know my website. So just hit me up, and I could send you a copy of the short story. But here's the thing, you know, and Lisa Strada, if you must know, Lisa Strada is some, you know, I can't necessarily say that it originated with the white Greeks. I can't say that, you know, but that's the example that white people pass down. You know, that's the example they pass down. You get what I'm saying? Just like how my white instructor told me, hey, you know, these ancient Kemet people, they just recorded the stars. They didn't understand it. No, they had calendars that reflected it, that reflected the, you know, the revolution of the galaxy. right? But but you want to give the Greeks credit, So I'm not gonna, or just like Pythagoras, the Pythagorean theorem, as they say, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. It was fundamental knowledge in Kemet, or even pi, the ancient Kemet people had a ratio that was roughly the value of pi, but is obviously the ratio between whole numbers, and it's not necessarily 3.1428 or whatever, right? It's but it's close, kind of like a 3.142, 1227 or something, something like that, right? But they have that, and it's but of course, white people give themselves the credit for black work. So I'm not going to necessarily do that. But in the story of Lysistrata, as we know it, there's two white people, at war with each other. What's new? And the women, and some women, I guess it's Lysistrata, and it's supposed to be a comedy, but she's just withholding sex. She and the other women get together, withhold sex, in order that the men stop fighting. And of course, it's a comedy, so the women are, kind of finding it hard to, not have sex, and the men are finding it even harder, obviously. And I think eventually she either ends the war or she relents. Who knows? Who cares? But the main thing is that for this story that I wrote, I took a basic premise, sex boycott, right? But I turned it on its head. Instead of stopping a war between two people, it might be otherwise. You get what I'm saying? So that's the gist of it, and of course that makes it so that, and I say this to dissect it and give you a story, if you will, So in essence, that's what I want you to submit. I want you to submit a story with a lesson, with something to it, So before you even start writing, send me the storyline, right? Like what I just did, right? I either say that you want to address a problem. So like, what's the problem? Police brutality, right? Police brutality is the problem, right? Right? Okay. So what? Right? So then what's the solution, right? And so let's say for my story, it's black men standing up, right? Black men standing up. It's like, okay, so who is the protagonist, right? You tell me who the protagonist is. A black woman who's had enough. You know what I'm saying? She had enough. She had enough of police brutality. So she's the protagonist, right? So then what's her MO? What's her modus operandi, right? She's going to organize a sex boycott. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole story, right? And now you could think of your own, right? Think of your own, but just make it realistic and doable. And bear in mind that for this anthology, right? Or for this reader, and just like for the order, I intend to edit a lot. Okay? I want to edit a lot. I want it to be really good for our people. And first I might just start off with a verbal edit, tell you, hey, look, logic is not working over here. Or I might tell you, hey, flesh out this story more, flesh out the characters more, give some more setting, give you some good creative advice. Then maybe I might put if you send it back to me and it looks like it needs a lot of work, I might do some work on it. But and of course I'm gonna ask for your approval. We're gonna work together. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna work together. I'm just looking to make it better so that our young people can look at it and say, yeah, that's a good story. The grammar, the spelling errors are gone. Spelling errors are gone. The grammatic errors are gone. The unnecessary grammatic errors are gone. This is a good story. So, don't miss out on this opportunity, right? So, but here's another example, and I'm purposely going to give you an example that's not good, right? Right now, I'm going to give you an example that's not good, so that you understand that you don't have to be good in the first go. You could fix it. So it's like, what's the problem? You might say, well, black people are too Christian, right? So then what's the solution? Let's say adopting another spirituality, right? And then so you say, who's the protagonist? Say it's a man who is tired of black people praying all the time. You know what I'm saying? And so what's his MO? And let's say he starts a spiritual center filled with beautiful women and wealthy bachelors. You get what I'm saying? So like the story, you could point out, humans, our desires, all that kind of stuff. And again, that's not realistic. That's not realistic. It's not really a good story for what we're aiming for. Because we're looking for, if I didn't make it clear, we're looking for revolutionary books, revolutionary stories that tell something beautiful, wonderful. You know what I'm saying? So, and I could give you some examples, just really quickly about, let's say there's this movie called Uptight, right? So you could take that storyline, right, and you could change it however you want, But like for the film Uptight, what was the problem? The problem was black traders. How do you deal with black traders, right? And of course, the solution was to kill them. You see what I'm saying? The solution was to kill them. So then, who was the protagonist? Now here's what's interesting. The protagonist is the black trader himself. You get what I'm saying? So what's his modus operandi? What's his MO? It's to run, but he eventually gets caught. You get what I'm saying? And yeah, I just spoiled the movie for you. Too bad. You should have read it when I wrote about it in the Pro-Black Compendium, right? But there you go. You don't have. You might not necessarily want to make the protagonist be the black trader, but you might also, because the black trader, what is he? He's irresponsible. He's a drunkard. He drinks too much. He blabs his mouth too much. He's looking to betray his people even further. All that kind of stuff. He's running. He's a coward. You might want to tell that part, or you might want to tell the part of the people who are hunting down the black trader. Whatever floats your boat. And again, you don't have to adopt a film, but then another film that comes to mind is Quilombo. What's the problem? What's the problem? The Portuguese are the problem. What's the solution? Same solution as before. Kill them. And who's the protagonist? The people of Palmares. It could be in a whole organization, the whole people. And what's the MO? Create a maroon village. But again, you don't have to make it as a film. But again, you also don't have to. You also could take a film, switch it up, change it up, and make it your own thing. Like I took a Native Son and made it into The Inevitable Daughter. So that's a short story. That's a play I wrote called The Inevitable Daughter, where instead of Native Son, where you deal with a boy, who gets in trouble with the law eventually, right, over some stupid, whatever, right? I made it to a woman, a woman who gets in trouble with the law, and I changed the story up, instead of interacting with the Communist Party, she's interacting with the ABS, the African blood siblings. You know what I mean? It's that's how you can do it. You can put life, modernize a problem, modernize a question, solve a problem, but whatever it is, do it that way. Do it that way. Think of a storyline. Think of a story. Think of a problem that we need to address. Whether it's police brutality, whether it's black people not organizing, whether it's colorism, whether it's, anything, think of the problem, think of the solution, and then write the story so that people don't feel like they're being lectured per se, but they're given human reactions in a context, and again, like I said, you don't have to be a movie, like I have a short story called Cuffle Sands, or it's a letter from Cuffle Sands, and Sands, short for sandwiches, and what was her problem? Her problem was that she was broke. So then what was her solution? She sold sandwiches. Who's the protagonist? It's Cuffle, and what's her MO? It's to sell sandwiches, then reinvest in the business to own a whole sandwich chain, so that there's a revolutionary story, and just off the top of my head, we can talk about, Susu's gone wrong, and eventually, the mother of the trader killing her, killing her baby, that's a good revolutionary message, of course, but you also got to consider, is it realistic enough? Is it realistic enough? And so on and so forth, anything, but that's what I'm looking for. We're looking to put out 2 more books, at least this year, right? At least 2 more this year, because I still got a lot more reading to do for my, let's say, my magnus opus, But until then, definitely, hit me up. Say, hey, look, I want to write a story on XYZ. This is my protagonist. This is what they do. This is how they're gonna do it. And if I like it, I'll say, look, man, definitely work on that. If I don't like it, but you really want to work on it, then go work on it yourself. Or even you could even send me the final product, and I might say, hey, you know what? I might have been wrong. It's a good ass story. Or I might say, I still don't like it. But that doesn't stop you from writing, because again, go back to what Marcus Garvey said in the beginning. A reading man or woman is a ready man or woman, but a writing man or woman is exact. So just get yourself exact. If you're doing it for me, then maybe just take my advice the first time and don't write about it. You know what I'm saying? but if you're doing it, to be exact, then that's good too. That's good too. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Definitely hit me up on social media. Again, like I said before, if you're looking to listen to my my other speech, if you're looking to read my book, my short story from before, hit me up. A lot of you are not writing the reviews for the Pro-Black Compendium or Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa. You're also not interested in buying the Carlos A. Cook's reader, right? Definitely change that, because first off, this Carlos A. Cook's reader is really instrumental, right? But also the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi, you got to start reading that too. You got to read it, you got to review it, and when you review it, put the review on the main Amazon.com website. If you already put up a review on another website, that's cool, but if you can, try to put it on the main website too, because the site heavily favors the main website. But definitely, hit me up. Read these books. Get yourself the Carlos A. Cook's reader. Get yourself more copies of the Pro-Black Compendium. Let me know what kind of storylines, what kind of stories you want to put in the Oncobian reader. Name pending. And let me know who you want to record and who you want to be in the Oncobian orator. Because I already feel like, look, we're gonna have some Amos Wilson, we're gonna have some Garvey, we're gonna have some Cooks, we're gonna have some Oni, obviously, right? But like, who else do you want? We get some Marimba Ani, we get some Drusilla, we can get some just make sure that they're Pan-African nationalists, like through and through. No integrationists. We don't need our young people growing up, looking at integrationists in any kind of way. They can trip over them, they can fall over them, but we're not gonna tell them to go to them. We're gonna say, look, you go to Dr. Ben. You know what I'm saying? You go to Marimba Ani. Or whatever, whomever. But and like, yeah, we can do some general advice too. We can do some health talk, and they might not necessarily be Pan-African nationalists, but let's focus, okay? But anyway, thank you so much for listening. Shemi Hotep, Anku Jas, Taneb Neb, Amen Ma'at Dua Necha.
Thank you for listening. I invite you to join hands with your brothers and sisters as we recite the African affirmation together. It's a call and response, so follow my lead. We are an African people, robbed from our homeland, robbed of our names, our languages, our cultures, our religions, our womanhood, our manhood, our sisterhood, our brotherhood, our motherhood, our fatherhood, our selfhood, our nationhood, and our self-respect. But we shall rise, never to fall again. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.